So let's talk about the retrains we do have in the new structure deck coming along. I'm not going to read you the effect. I feel like at this time and moment, you already know what I know, so that's why I'm kind of making this video also. So Quillbot Hedgehog got a retrain, so we're going to put him in the side deck for cards that did get retrain. We also got technically a retrain of Junk Warrior, and then we also got a retrain of where is he? Speed Warrior. So we got a retrain of these three cards. So the reason why this is good and perfect is because of the fact that this structure deck is heavily reliant on Yusei's strategy. Now that's kind of a branch that we need to talk about first before I talk about what cards could they retrain. Originally, I was going to sit here and be like, okay, out of all these cards, I think Sonic Chick would be a good card to retrain, and then maybe Tuning Wear, and then talk about how they could lead into XL Synchro plays. In case you just don't know, and I already did a video on this, I did a Starlight Synchro deck, a pure Stardust deck, utilizing Stardust, and of course, Junk Warriors in it. This is very much a meta Yusei Fudo type of deck. Alright, if you're going to go to a tournament and play Stardust, this is word for word, card for card, exactly what you want to use. No other recipe would achieve this. This is pure synchro perfection, basically. But, as you can see, if you know this stuff intricately, you would understand the failings of this deck and the failings of the whole archetype to begin with. We have a big boss monster that can negate. Alright, we have a couple, and we have really good XL Synchro cards, but a lot of the cards, there's a problem, and I'll show it with the regular Yusei over here, but going back to my main deck, the problem here is it relies too much on Speeder. However, why this deck list is better than the rest of the other synchro decks is that it also relies on the Stardust engine, and this isn't exactly a synchron only type of deck, because if you're going to play synchrons, it's speeder or break. If you're going to play this deck for the XL Synchro aspect of it and using your tuner synchros to synchro summon into bigger Stardust, you're going to use the Stardust engine as well, and not just as a side piece, but as part of the main board. Most games, or some games, when I open up, it is nothing but the Stardust engine, Stardust Synchron, Stardust Illumination, Stardust Trail. These give me my my 3 Omni Negates, or my 2 Omni Negates with Shooting Majestic Star Dragon and the Trap card. And that's if I didn't do the Junk Synchron play, right? And if I do Junk Synchron and he's already on the field for whatever reason, I could then go off and go into another XL Synchro setup, Stardust Warrior, Satellite Warrior, whatever. In my turn, that's my first turn, 10 out of 10 first turn. But what is missing is more text on the card, which sounds funny, but what I'm trying to say is the card doesn't do much. Alright, Doppel Warrior, if he's in your hand, he's a brick. Alright, if Junk Warrior's in your hand, he's a brick. If Junk Converter's in his hand, it's a brick. This deck really needs 2 or 3 card combos to function. And when we go here to the Yusei cards, what does Nitro Synchro do? Well, he doesn't do something unless he's sent to the graveyard, right? So, it's either they give cards the ability to be more like the Blue Eyes cards, where it's a 1-card combo, or it's a card for setup. That's why the new card, what is it called? I already forgot what it's called. Synchro Fellows. Okay, I don't want to see that messed up anything. Sorry, I'm trying something new with this recording. Synchro Fellows. I don't even think I have it here. Or is it Synchron Fellows? No, it's Synchro Fellows. So I don't even think it's in here yet. Yeah, I don't think it's here yet. What is it called? Oh wait, no, well, I forgot what I do. OCG or pre-release? Here we go. Well, the point is, Synchro Fellows lets you add a card and discard a card, like all at once, basically. And it helps a lot of what the archetypes, the three archetypes, really lack in. But this is something I need to talk about before I talk about anything else. So what I need to talk about before we talk about, what cards could they retrain, is the fact of direction with the deck. It's apparent to me that they did a lot for Stardust to make it playable, and that's why I'm able to play this deck. Thank you, Konami. But they also did a lot for the Signer Dragon type of stuff, with the Crimson Dragon and stuff. So we got Arrive in Light, we have Converging Wills Dragon to play into the Majestic Star Dragon, into the Shooting Majestic Star Dragon, and I think all of that works perfectly. I think all that works great. You know what I mean? To bring the not Yusei strategy, but the Stardust stuff into modern Yu-Gi-Oh, as we like to call it. I think all that worked great. The part that's lacking is the junk / synchron part. That's the part that's not doing too well. But before I talk about what they could retrain or give us to make it better, we have to understand something. In the anime, and that's why I'm going to put like the title of this video something about like only true synchro players would know this, because honestly, if you understand the way the ebb and flow of battle when you're on the motorbike goes, you'll understand this. You know, if you catch my drift. Stardust was Yusei's technically, even though it's his ace, it's technically his second boss monster. His first boss monster for a while was Junk Warrior, but it's also what they symbolize. Stardust has a protection effect, which then evolves into a negation effect, which then evolves into a blow up your field and protection effect, and then it mutates into a banish and negate effect, which then ultimately accumulates into another Omni Negate, right? So Stardust is a defensive Omni Negate. However, the complete opposite is with Junk Warrior, the OTK aspect, alright? In the final episode of the anime, Junk Warrior punches Red Demon's Dragon in the face, alright? And it's a really cool scene, and we all love it. But why am I saying all this? It's because the direction of the Stardust stuff is similar to the, let me vomit out my board and make a bunch of Omni Negates, the things that people really love to do for whatever reason. And that seemed as meta, and that seems as good. But a lot of people don't understand that Junk Warrior is a different, I don't know if I should say aspect, but it's a different area that they're trying to do. And with Junk Warrior, you want to OTK, right? You're not trying to do 13 Omni Negates in one turn so you could get killed with Dark Ruler No More, which this deck basically beats Dark Ruler No More. That's why all the lists aren't that good. You're looking at peak synchro, and I say that 3 times because it's triple peak. PPP synchro. I should make a shirt with that. But so that's what you're looking at. So you have to have this understanding. All right, they're not doing the Stardust stuff. They already did it. They already gave us perfection. They handed us perfection on a plate, on a platter, and that's what this deck is. But to do an OTK type of deck is very interesting because you have to fix the inherent problem of what this deck has. So the cards, like, what I'm trying to say here is the cards like the Quiltbot and the Speeder, Speed Warrior, it allows us to search for stuff and do stuff to go into that. But since this is Yusei related and they basically share the same core of the deck, right? They share the same main deck. The future they hold are different. So in that future, use the main deck to get out the OTK, right? The new Junk Warrior. Or, in a different future, go the Stardust Dragon route. I'm trying to use this analogy to point out something very obvious. So my hope is, and my hope's different from everyone else's hope, the cards we get can be used to take out some of these cards, just like that, right? Take them out just like that, and end up having a deck that's more consistent overall. Because even though I do like this, I do love this, it is not as consistent as it should be. Because you're really reliant on junk doppel tactics. In this deck, the new cards we're getting, I hope it's a different way we can set up that we don't have to rely on junk speeder. And even if we do have to rely on junk speeder, even if it dies, we can still keep on extending. Alright, let's say they negate it, but we can keep on extending. There is a card that goes hand in hand with... Sorry, I had a burp. With the new Junk Warrior. And that is Synchro Chase. I believe... Now, this doesn't work. It's just a theory. Go into Speeder. Speeder gets negated, but the effect of Converter will activate. Get you Junk Synchron. Off of Synchro Chase, you'll get back the Junk Synchron. Go into the new Junk Warrior. Destroy a monster. Get out Junk Warrior. And the effects... Your opponent... It's basically a branded loss. This is a branded loss, but for Synchrons. Or Synchros. Or, sorry. Specifically for Warrior, Synchron, and Stardust. And they need to start adding that clause to the new monsters and the new cards. And Synchro Fellows does actually kind of do that. You add a Junk Warrior and one... Oh, sorry. Add one Junk Warrior and a one monster that mentions either Junk Warrior or Stardust from your deck to your hand. I'm pretty sure that's a typo. It's supposed to be Synchron. Junk Synchron. Not Junk Warrior. You can't add Junk Warrior from your deck to your hand. That makes no sense. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a typo I just read. But you understand what I'm saying here, right? Now, of course, it's like, okay, well, you only do Speed of Joy first. Not necessarily, but I understand what you're saying, though. Right. Speeder has a second effect here. Okay, I cannot... Speeder has a second effect. When this card is Synchro Summoned and you attack with it, it doubles its attack. That's more OTK power. No one uses that because we're trying to spam on a lot, and for other people, weaker Synchro decks, the ceiling's lesser. So what ends up happening is they just get overrun, right? In this deck, even though the power ceiling's more higher than those decks, more resilient, it still falls to the same things, right? If you negate an effect, it's still going to be negated. But at least now we can end on more of the Stardust stuff instead of the more powerful Stardust and Junk. But that's kind of the thing, and Junk. The end board of this deck, if the support goes the way I think it's going to go, or I want it to go, I should say, not I think, but the way I want it to go, I'll be putting some more Junk stuff in here to make it more fluent. Instead of it being just, oh, this is the Stardust XL Synchro deck and this is the Junk deck. It's going to be, no, the basis of the Junk deck is going to be in this deck, and a little bit of the extra deck for the OTK is going to be in here as well. That's the like real end goal, basically, is what I hope we get. So I did talk a lot, and I mean a lot, about the setup of what everything means and all that. So we're going to get into the retrains. Understand, again, just for the final time, this is not retrains for the Stardust strategy of Omni Negates. This is not for the Synchro strategy of let's barf generic toolboxy level 8s onto the field or whatever to do some Omni Negates. No Dawn Drafts or stuff. No, none of that. Alright, this is purely for a Junk Warrior deck. Even if it needs to be OTK or not, who cares, right? So, first card I want to talk about is that we have a lot of these Synchrons here, right? But I kind of have to obliterate them immediately because this deck seems to be doing a Junk Warrior only type of thing, right? However, I kind of want to see a retrain of Nitro Warrior, Turbo Warrior, and Road Warrior. I'm not going to lie, I want to see these guys. But the whole thing about the deck is supposed to be the cards Yusei used. So I'm going to drive the cards right here. A card he absolutely always used was Sonic Check. This needs to get retrained. I'm going to do it as absolutely needs to be retrained here. So Sonic Check Technically, the only other monster would be Tuningware. The reason why I say that is because looking at all of them, we already have Junk Synchron. He's perfect the way he is. And even if we'll get onto the possible retrain of what they could do with a Junk Synchron retrain in a second, but not Doppel. Doppel was never considered one of his longtime friends, right? And this is a retrain of Speeder, so I'm not going to count it because we already have the retrain of Speeder. I'm actually going to put Speeder back here, and not him, but the absolutely cards they need to retrain, maybe not even Turbo Booster, alright? But, like, you know what I mean? Sonic Chick and Tuningware. These two have to be the next cards that they have to put. They just have to do it. If you look at the card art for the Synchro Fellows, Sonic Chick and another monster is on there. The other monster, I think, can be a placeholder for any level 2. And the reason why I say that is because we don't see Yusei use that monster until, like, sometime later. Like, he's not really part of the main gang, but Yusei was always doing stuff with Tuningware. And Tuningware is such a good card, just for any synchro strategy. If you use him as a synchro material, just draw a card. And they could do something with that. Add more flavor to that. Add more text. Do something, right? Because, again, that's what a lot of these cards don't do. They all have effects. Like, Hyper Synchron could have just been a normal monster, and it probably would have been better. That's how wonky and, I guess you could say, bad these effects are. If this card is sent to the graveyard for a synchro summon of a dragon monster, that monster gains 800. Also, banish that face-up monster during the end phase. Like, why? I'm going to get rid of a level 8 and it's going to be banished. Nowadays, we have more things to do with banishing, but even for back then, when this card was released, it was just bad. Now, I could sit here and do 10,000 different ways to justify a Hyper Synchron retrain and be like, oh, we could use it with Stardust, but I'm going to take it out because I don't think they're going to retrain it. Breeze Synchron, I don't think they're going to retrain it either, but I do want to say for all these Synchrons, I wish there was a Warrior counterpart, and I wish they leaned more into the Warrior stuff. It would be more battle OTK stuff, but in retrospect, thinking about it, I kind of do wish, or no, I guess I'm getting my wish, I should say that. Instead of just focusing on all that bloat, we focus solely in on the Junk Warrior OTK to streamline it, and also make it more consistent. As we all know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game of consistency. You want to be kind of consistent. So I do wish there's kind of like a mono warrior, but you know what I mean. Quick Draw Synchron, I wish his effect was more in play. I do want to say I would want to see a retrain for this, and maybe this. For the retrain versions of Road Warrior, Nitro Warrior, Turbo Warrior, Drill Warrior. It's cool that we can special summon any Junk monster, but you only really want Junk Warrior. So, you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have a consistent way to do the cool new stuff than it kind of doesn't work, but we get to mess around with all these other monsters. If you kind of understand what I'm saying. Armory Arm, I don't think it needs a retrain, but it was always cool when Yusei pulled this out. I hope, it's 15 cards, already hard enough, but I hope some way the new support for the main deck, at least, makes it so we could take out some monsters from the extra deck. If we're looking at the extra deck of my deck specifically, it's really tight. All these cards I absolutely need. I kind of want a retrain of Jet Warrior, but I think Jet Warrior is pretty good in itself, but if maybe the retrain could take over the place of Shooting Riser Dragon somehow, some way, and even Shooting Riser, for all this text, it basically just says decreases the level, and then you get a summon on your opponent's turn. It's just a bunch of restrictions, so it doesn't really. It doesn't really do anything. It's just kind of just there. It goes back to the inherent problems of it. If we look at the newer cards like this does a lot, and it does it really good. This does a lot, and it does it really good. This needs a lot, and it doesn't do it that good. You can see the pattern. From this deck list, I would like a retrain of Doppel. That would help a lot, but I think the new Synchro Fellows does it even better, because I could just discard the Doppel. You know what I mean? Things like that are really, really good, and that's the whole thing. Like, Synchro Fellows is definitely a put in this deck. I don't know if the new Speed Warrior would be. I want to see the new support, and that's kind of what I want to theorize about right now. So this is for sure. This needs to be retrained. This needs to be retrained. These cards need to be retrained. These were like Yusei's friends of all time, basically. So getting rid of all this. Junk Mail's here because he's from the manga. But you see the wording? A monster with Warrior, Synchron, or Stardust in its original name. They need to do that for all the other monsters. I see what they're doing with the quote bot to set up with the OTK and Speed Warrior to set up with that too. It's really great. Even if you just run these cards at one-ofs or something like that. So maybe you go first and you just really want to kill your opponent because sometimes you just can't overcome their board. You just do the quick OTK and then boom, you're able to kill them. That would be really, really great. So a problem with me making videos where I talk, I end up rambling and I end up going on forever and ever and ever and ever. So I'm trying to not do that. Even with my new deck profiles I've done, I've also tried not to do that as well. And I keep stuttering because my brain keeps going faster than my mouth can perceive. Here's a really good tuner, Steam Synchron. It goes more to the Excel Synchro stuff, but imagine if they retrained it and you see how there's like a bunch of emptiness. It could really synergize. Like, they need to retrain cards and do that with it. And they did that pretty good with Speed Warrior. As a fact, and look at the retrain, it's way more better. It adds a card, it powers up without being activated. So it's really, really great in that regard. So, Synchron Explorer is another cool card they could do. But if we're talking about going more for the junk aspect, which we could already tell they're dead set on, I think the only card left would either be... Oh yeah, Effect Veiler's here because it's a Yusei card, despite stuff. But Effect Veiler is a Yusei card. But he also had another Veiler, Clear Effector. Oh, well, it reminds me of Effect Veiler, I should say then. This card could also be retrained, not as a hand trap, but it has the same exact effect as Tuning Wear. But it also protects your monster. So what if this? You use this card as a synchro for a junk, Stardust, or a warrior in its name, so Signal Warrior, and it becomes unaffected for like 2 turns. That would be really good. And it would be great because it's archetype locked. It's not going to be used in any combos like Barrel Load Dragon outside of the Rocket archetype. And then it lets you draw 1 card, and then maybe you could banish it to do something else, right? So I want Clear Effector here. The only time Yusei ever used it, however, was during the final duel against Zone when he did the whole Crimson Dragon stuff. So, you know what I mean? Tomato, tomato. I'm going to get rid of Effect Veiler. I don't think we need an archetype trap like Effect Veiler because we already have Effect Veiler. There's no need to do another Effect Veiler unless they wanted to and it was like crazier than Effect Veiler, but it has to be archetype locked to Stardust, Synchron, and Warrior. Turbo Booster is another interesting card. It is a card that Rowley gave Yusei, and Yusei held it on, and he used it throughout the entire series. So it's a card given to him by his friend, but it has a really wonky effect. If you have a normal summon monster this turn, you can special summon this card from your hand. Sorry. If you have a normal summon a monster this turn, normal summoned monster this turn, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can tribute this card to destroy 1 monster your opponent controls that battled one of your monsters this turn. So it does have a wonky effect. What the new effect could possibly be is you get to summon it out. So it's an extender. I don't know about the whole clause if you normal summon a monster. I think it should just be an extender if you have a Synchron, Warrior, or Stardust monster on the field. You know what I mean? So it comes out like that. And then you contribute it, so it has synergy with Stardust Trail to pop a card. If it's not to pop, it should be a card that does something else. I don't know how to explain it, but you're going to tribute this guy for something, right? And I don't think it should be a tribute to Search. I think it should still rely on the old. I know there's probably going to be a lot of people that would want it to Search, tribute to get a Search. But the reason why is because we're talking about retraining a card. We still want to keep the original of the card intact, but we also want to bring it up to modern standards. So there's a really, I guess people use the word ham-fisted way of doing it. It would pop a card, and then you would also be able to search. I think that's not the way it should be. I think it should do something where you tribute it, maybe pop 2 cards for every Stardust Warrior Synchro monster on your field. Okay. So, I was reading this card, and you could tribute this card to destroy 1 monster your opponent card. It could be destroy any card. Maybe, I don't want to say banish, I think that's too powerful of this, but I was thinking maybe for each face-up Stardust Warrior or Synchron monster you currently control, you could pop a card on the field for that if you tribute him. So then you could get Trail off as well. So you tribute him, bring out Trail, and then when he resolves, you're getting like 5 pops at maximum. And if we're talking about going second, that's pretty good. You would want a board breaker like that. But that effect in itself may be too broken, and I would want to say that we would have to tie this in a way with Junk Warrior and letting Junk Warrior using this to lead it in a way that it's going to OTK with Junk Warrior or to help him OTK, and also on the side effect of you can still use this for the Stardust plays if you want, right? Because honestly, truthfully, I would want the Junk Warrior deck, I should say, to mix really well with the Stardust stuff and vice versa. Because if you build a deck with Junk Warrior and Stardust, both, in it as the archetypes, that's the true Yusei deck. And I understand they're doing this to give us a true playstyle for the deck, right? Like the Dark Magician stuff, the Blue Eye stuff, you could really get into your Kaiba, you could really have fun as Yugi. So that's why I'm bringing all this up. That's why I'm saying there needs to be that bridge for the Stardust stuff also. Not just the Junk Warrior, because, you know what I mean? You want to combine the both to have the maximum amount of fun. They also have Signal Warrior, and you could do things with Signal Counters. I don't know if they're trying to be serious with Signal Counters or not, or maybe this is just designed to more with the Crimson Dragon stuff, because the Crimson Dragon stuff is the only stuff that had Signal Counters, but it's not something that should just be ignored either. Maybe Signal Counters could be Yusei's thing, I don't know, or maybe it's like a dead thing in the water, or maybe they could do something with the new structure deck, but it seems a little weird if it's like Signal Counters now, but you get the point. We also don't have a Signal Synchron. I think we should. I think with the Yusei and his cards, they should have not got rid of the whole needing a Synchron with it, because it was so much fun doing that, but I understand. Like with the Junk Synchron and him needing that, we have Synchro. Well, now we have Synchro Overtake, but that's only now. But it does depend, right? So this is a really good card, but if it gets negated, it kind of shuts down. But I mean, hey, that's kind of the game itself. If you negate a card, it gets shut down. So I think my point in what I'm trying to say is I'm going to remove Signal Warrior, and I'm going to remove, well, maybe, right? But these are definitely the cards I would want to see. I don't know about Turbo Booster. I'm on the edge about that one. I don't know. Clear Effector, I like the card a lot, and I like it that it's another tuning wear. It lets me draw, and it gives my card protection. But I don't know. If they're really going to do the whole retrain monsters, I don't know if this would be it. A new Junk Synchron? Maybe. In the deck, we're already running 3 Junk Synchrons, just because of the name. I don't know. Like, look at that. 3 Junk Synchrons already. Am I going to add 3 more Junk Synchrons to the deck? I don't know. I don't know if that's kind of what they want to do. But a retrain wouldn't be so bad. Alright? So even though I said Junk Synchron was already perfect, let's just say they do a retrain on Junk Synchron, right? Would he be a 3 of, or would he be a 1 of, right? But also, would it be like a Yumi situation? This card's always treated as Junk Synchron. But what else could they do with Junk Synchron, right? Okay, same effect. When this card's normal summon, target 1 level 2 or lower monster, special summon it. Maybe its effects aren't negated. If it did that, right? I forgot the name of the new... Okay, it's called like an Arcbolt Hedgehog and then Full Speed Warrior. So, I mean, it could have been Full Speed Hedgehog, Full Speed Bolt Hedgehog, and Full Speed Warrior. But I understand what they're doing with the names. It's pretty. It's kind of cute. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna hate on the name. Say, oh, they shouldn't have done the names that way. But for more of an archetypal feel, I guess. But then maybe that would have been a whole nother archetype, you know. And this whole 3 archetypes thing doesn't really have a name. And calling it the Full Speed archetype may not be the best idea. I feel like it would just be more bloat, right? So I don't know if I want a. I don't know if we need. We just have to see what the other cards say. I kind of want the support to be so good. We don't need a retrain of Junk Synchron. You know what I mean? And that's how good I want the support to be. The last cards I want to talk about are the Scrap Iron. This blocks an attack. They could do a retrain of exactly this Scrap Iron, actually. It blocks an attack, and it does some other things. You know what I mean? I think all I want is another Scrap Iron, like a new Scrap Iron. It could be a retrain of Scarecrow, it's fine. But I do want a new Scrap Iron, right? This brings back a level 8 Dragon Synchro monster, and maybe have the effect be something very, very big. If you control a Warrior, Synchron, or Stardust monster, or maybe have a third effect where if you control one of each, something happens on the field, or monsters that meet the criteria of each name, right? So if you have a Junk Warrior and a Stardust Dragon, you get the Mega effect off because you meet the criteria of each name. And then the second effect above that one would be like, if you control at least one, you get this effect, and then it would be like negates an attack. Scrap Iron statue is really good. It's basically when a spell or trap card that's already face up on your opponent's field activates its effect, destroy that card. If it said monster, this would have been really even better. But it's basically a watered down Ghost Ogre, but it doesn't get rid of itself. None of the Scrap Iron cards get rid of themselves. They're always on the field, and that is what's great about them. Scrap Iron Signal is a counter trap. In case you didn't know, yes, Scrap Iron has a counter trap. It's a very powerful counter trap, but it's more of a win more counter trap. And I kind of wish this would be maybe if you controlled a monster that has a synchro monster as in its text, you could activate this card when it's set. So when you're about to do another summon, you could set this, go into an Excel synchro monster, and then if they try to nib you, do this to negate it. Because what this card just does, and yes, it does reset itself. That's the gimmick of the Scrap Iron cards, but you can only activate this card once per turn. When your opponent activates a monster effect, where you control a synchro monster that mentions the synchro monster as material, negate the activation. Also, after that, set this card face down instead of sending it to the grave. It's really great. I wish I had an excuse to play this in my Stardust deck. Sadly, I don't, but if you do, it adds more protection, but the only downside is that it's more of a win more. Maybe it should have said if you control a Stardust, Junk, or Warrior monster, not type of Warrior, but, you know, Warrior in its name. You know what I mean? Like, this is pretty good, and I understand they don't want it to be too powerful because you get to keep reusing it, but tomato, I guess. So the cards I want to see retrain are these, and we already got 2 of them. So I want to see these 3 next, alright? This one's definitely for me, personally, because I always thought getting this effect off would be cool. You know, you summon out Stardust with it. Stardust can't be destroyed by card effects. It was more of a fan thing, but if we're going with realistically, pretend this isn't here, and it would just be these 2. That's what I want to see. I want to see these cards be used for Junk Warrior, and of course a retrain of Army Arm to help more with maybe both for the OTK, but also Stardust stuff as well. But the number one thing I really want is just more streamlined consistency, because the deck right now does not have that at all. And by deck, I mean the archetypes do not have that at all. Galaxy players complain that there's too many extenders. There's no... in order to extend, you need cards for the extending. And I understand the whole deck's about fellowship, and fellows, and bonds. But when you're stuck with a Doppel Warrior in hand, it's pretty bad, right? And that's why Synchro Fellows really does help, but it is really hard, though. It is really hard. But there's another card I didn't mention, and that is Doppel Warrior himself. So instead of her, it could just be Doppel Warrior, because Synchro Fellows does say in a monster that mentions Junk Synchron or Stardust, then discard one card. Well, do they really expect us to open up Doppel, do Synchro Fellows, get Junk Synchron, and get a card that mentions that, and then discard the Doppel? So that means we would have to be playing triple Doppel, Reinforcements on Army. I don't think so. I think that's a big hint to say Doppel's getting a retrain, and I kind of want him to do it where it's like you have the choice of summoning 1 or 2 tokens out if you want to, because of the space on the board, and that could help with your synchro summons even better, and that helps both sides of the deck. But that's been my commentary on everything, on the whole what cards I want to see, what cards I don't want to see, or I guess can't see now, because now we know what kind of direction they're going into. And I wonder if they're going to give us a retrain of the monster that's in the art, because clearly this is taken from when Yusei was going to synchro summon into Junk Warrior to attack, but I don't know if they're going to do anything with that other monster that we see in the artwork. But like, comment, subscribe, and thank you.